Right. Are you going to settle down? Right. Yes. So the morning was spent, as is my wont at the moment, answering questions and doing bookkeeping stuff. But this afternoon got some productive work done on the cookie cutter stuff. Mostly to do with setting up Docker and test infra. So the way it works is, I've tweaked some of the questions that Cookie Cutter asks, and basically what happens now is there will be scripts in the Cookie Cutter formula in its root that will by default will run a Docker, which I've a Docker container, which basically just contains Salt running in local mode and and test infra. I've actually put PyTest, test infra, and PyTest BDD in there. So the idea is that there will be a script that will add the various configuration requirements for example, pillar data, using a pillar example from the formula. There will be it will need to decide whether it's doing it from an SPM package or whether it's doing it manually. It will then set up effectively a build area with the pillar formulae, salt states, all that kind of stuff, and those get mounted as volume onto the Docker. Then in another volume on the Docker, it will mount the scripts, and in another volume it'll mount the actual tests, the testing for tests. So the scripts that get mounted will then be executed. There's no entry point on the thing, because the idea is that when you write your formula, you might have special requirements, so you might as well just you know there'll be a template script and you'll be able to modify that, do whatever you need it to do. At its core, though, the template script will be the sort of generic one, and what it will do is it will actually run salt call for the state apply to apply the formula. Assuming that's successful, it will then execute the test infra tests, the point of which is to verify that the thing has been deployed properly. Now, one of the things that you can do additionally is, for example, with the Gitea formula, there are things like optionally the Gitea formula will install Git on the same host. Why optionally? Well, you may have somewhere in your infrastructure something that already installs Git another way. So you might not want the Gitea formula itself to install it, but since it's a precondition of Gitea being installed, you want that as an optional default, which will, install Git and then install Gitea. Fine. The second part is you need to have a database that Gitea can use. Now, you don't want to put that in the actual Gitea formula because you don't know what database it's going to be. All you need in the Gitea formula is the ability to connect to a database. So obviously there's a precondition within the Gitea formula that says make sure that I can connect to the database specified. And it then becomes an orchestration issue, because there's a very good chance that the database will be deployed on a separate machine. So that's an orchestration issue. So the orchestration would be deploy and set up the Postgres database, and then deploy Gitea. And obviously the check will then work because the database is already sitting there waiting. So that's the idea. So how do you test that? Well, obviously you can test the Gitea formula as installed the Gitea executable. You can test that it's installed Git if it was optionally asked to do so. You can test that it didn't install Git if it wasn't asked to do so. You can test that it checks the database connection, I guess. What's tough is to should it also test for the database? The answer to that question is yeah, sure, why not? You could add into your Gitea formula, in the tests area, you can add that you should install the state that will, or the formula that will allow you to install a database. You can install a database locally, and then you can confirm all of that. You can verify everything that you want to within the tests. Okay, because it doesn't matter if it's not, as long as it's not actually in the Gitea formula, we can add anything we like at the test level. That's fine. So that's something that we'll do. Yeah. All in all, pretty good. I'm feeling good about this now. One of the things that I will be doing is one of the questions is test using Docker. I think I might also add a test that if the owner is should I? I mean, one of the things I want to do is be able to use this Docker image, and then I'll layer on top of it the requirements for it to be used in a CI/CD chain. Now, as far as Concourse is concerned, the main thing is the paths. You need to be a bit careful with the paths. When you're using the Docker instance in its sort of native form, things like tests, SRV, scripts are all mounted at the root level. When you use the same thing in inside a CI system, that path may not be /root. It may not be /tests or whatever. It may be, some long chain / some build ID /. So you just have to be a bit conscious to modify or allow to be modified those scripts. But I think that's something I should do outside the formula. Because one way of addressing it is to symbolically link /tests to whatever complex thing is, and then just run the script. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'll have a play with that. Right, that's it for today.